Hi everybody. This week we are going to look at lessons 49 through 52. So let's get started. This week you're going to need your lessons manual, the student's worksheet book, the math card games manual with the game cards, the centimeter cubes, and the math journal. This week, your child is going to continue to work on their basic subtraction math facts. Let's go ahead and get started by turning to lesson 49. For the warm-up section, you will continue to work on the terms for a subtraction problem. Remember the terms we learned last week, subtrahend and difference? Well, if not, let me remind you of what they are. So in the equation, 11 minus 3 equals 8. The 3, what you are subtracting, is called the subtrahend, and the solution to this problem is called the difference. Be sure that you write the initial problem on the whiteboard, the problem listed at the top of the warm-up section. It's 10 minus 6 equals 4, because that is the problem that your child is going to be working on and adjusting throughout that first paragraph of the warm-up. The second paragraph, you will be actually reviewing subtraction strategies that you taught last week. And in the third paragraph, your child will be using the imaginary abacus to solve the problems. Now remember, the imaginary abacus is you're showing the abacus, but their child is moving the air beads. They are not actually touching the abacus itself. This is a step towards your child fully getting that abacus in their minds and then pulling them from the usage of the physical abacus. So they're not going to need the physical abacus in days to come or weeks to come. The final paragraph of the warm-up will have your child reviewing the strategies that you taught 2 weeks ago. Now, once the warm-up is done, you're going to continue to work on worksheet 23 by filling in the next 3 rows. And that would be the rows showing a negative or minus 4, minus 5, and minus 6, or the subtrahend of 4, 5, and 6. You will also need worksheet 23 for lesson 50 as well. So make sure you keep it handy or keep it out and don't put that away, don't file it away, because your child is going to need that in the future. Let's go ahead and take a look at the top of the second page of the lesson under the term practice. Here you're going to ask your child some of the new math facts that they built on their charts, the minus 4, minus 5, minus 6. Have them double check their answers on the chart as they answer their subtraction math facts to you. Make sure that they are able to solve the problems using a strategy and not necessarily based on the pattern in the chart. Now, there are 2 games listed for this lesson. You can choose to play one or both of these games for this lesson. The first game listed is the short chain solitaire game. My daughter absolutely loved the chain games. They're really fun, and actually my daughter did most of those by herself. She just totally enjoyed it. We do have a blog for this game, and it's called 2018 Summer Games Number 10 Short Chain Solitaire. In this game, your child is going to work through 12 of the subtraction math facts. Now, the other game you can play is called Short Chain Subtraction Solitaire. Now, there is not a blog for this game. If you have any questions on how to play the game, though, you can feel free to call us or email us for help. Now, while this is created to be a solitaire game, that second game, it can also be played with more than one player. So don't worry about it. If it says solitaire, that's okay. You can still have a couple players play it. But let's go ahead and turn to lesson 50. In the warm-up section, you are going to continue to review the terms difference and subtrahend, just like you did in lesson 49. Now, the second paragraph will have you review the strategies that you taught last week, and then the third paragraph will have you reviewing strategies you taught 2 weeks ago. If your child struggled with any of these strategies, you can go back and review some of those lessons if you want. Once the warm-up section is done, you're going to go ahead and give your child worksheet 23 again. Lesson 50 will complete the chart on the worksheet, but you're going to continue to use this worksheet as a reference in future lessons, so make sure you keep it out and available. On the top of the second page of the lesson, you're going to review the math facts that your child wrote on the last 3 lines of their chart in worksheet 23. You're going to want to choose these math facts randomly. Don't keep them in the pattern so that your child is not relying on the pattern to solve the problem, and you know they're getting those math facts down. Again, this lesson has 2 games listed for it, and you can choose to play either one or both of those games. The first game listed is long chain subtraction game, and it is played just like the short chain solitaire, except there are more problems used in this chain. Your child will use 60 subtraction math facts as opposed to the 12 that you used for the short chain. So this one will use a lot more subtraction math facts to solve the chain. The other game that you can play is called the long chain subtraction solitaire game. There is not a blog for either one of these games, but they are played just like the games that you played in lesson 49. Okay, well, let's go ahead and turn to lesson 51. This is another review and games day, which means you get a little bit of a break. Make sure that you only give your child either the 24A worksheet or the 24B worksheet, not both of them. The second worksheet can be used if your child does not do well on the first worksheet, or if later on in the year you want to go back and review some of these concepts. If you find your child has struggled with the review sheet, or maybe just a section of the review sheet, then you're going to want to review the lessons that cover the material your child struggled with. Once those lessons have been reviewed and your child understands those concepts a little bit better, then you can give them the other worksheet that they did not complete, either 24A or 24B. Just as I have done in the past, here, I'm going to give you a list of the equations or problems on the worksheet, and then the lessons to review if your child struggled with one or more of those problems. So if your child struggled on problem 1, which is 9 minus 2, they can go ahead and play the subtraction math card games to strengthen up their basic subtraction math facts. If your child struggled with problems 2 and 3, which were 69 plus 1 or 91 plus 2, you can go back and review lessons 20 and 21. If your child struggled with problem 4, they can go back and review lessons 22 and 42. Now this is a combination question where it combines a couple of different concepts together to see if your child understands how to use those concepts when it's combined together. Problem 4, which is the 4 by 3 question, you can go back and review lessons 36 and 37. For problem 6, which is the 13 minus 4 problem, you can go back and review lesson 50. For problem 7, which is the perimeter and area problem, go ahead and review lesson 38. For problem 8, which is that multi-digit addition problem, you can go back and review lessons 28, 29, and 30. For problem 9, the subtraction table, you can review lessons 49 and 50. If your child struggled with problems 10 through 12, you can go back and review lessons 26 and 34, or you can play some math card games to practice their math facts if that was the aspect of those problems that your child struggled with. For problem 13, which is the inches and centimeters problem, go back and review lessons 37 and 38. For problems 14 and 15, you can review lessons 26 and 34, or you can play the math card games to strengthen up those math facts. For problem 16, you can go back and review lessons 45, 46, and 47. The game for this lesson is Subtraction Bingo Game. We do have a blog for this game. It's called 2020 Summer's Game Number 7, Subtraction Bingo. Now, if your child flies through this worksheet and does well, or if you find that your child is struggling with some subtraction math facts, then feel free to add a second math card game as they need. Let's go ahead and turn to lesson 52. This lesson is going to need the math journal, which is in the back of the student worksheet book. So you'll go to their worksheet book, and the math journal looks like this. It's been a little while since they've used it, so I thought I'd show it to you again. For the warm-up section, your child is going to reference worksheet 23. So make sure your child has that worksheet available. The first 2 paragraphs of the worksheet, your child is going to be looking at worksheet 23 and discussing the patterns as you ask them the questions. The 4th paragraph of the warm-up is reviewing subtraction strategies as taught 2 weeks ago in the lessons. Now, in the next section of this lesson, you will be teaching your child the terms for the different sections of a subtraction problem. I talked a little bit about this last week, but let me show it to you again so you can see what each of the parts are. So for the problem, 11 minus 3 equals 8, that first section, 11, or the whole amount, is called the minuend. And as I mentioned before earlier today, what is being subtracted from that number is called the subtrahend, and the solution to that is called the difference. The next section of the lesson, you will again use worksheet 23 to review and apply the terms of minuend, subtrahend, and difference. You are going to need worksheet 23 again next week, so make sure your child has access to it. Now, on the top of the second page of the lesson, your child is going to be writing equations in that math journal. If you have a struggling learner in your home who might struggle with writing, then you can go ahead and have your child use the whiteboard instead. So why do we encourage children to write out these equations? Well, there's several reasons for that. One reason is your child needs to know how to write math equations. But the second reason is it helps them in their learning of their math facts. Both my daughter and myself learn things by writing. So when I was teaching my daughter, the more she wrote out equations, math fact equations, the easier she found to memorize them. So don't dismiss the importance of working through this activity. This is not a time killer. This is something that will actually go towards their learning of those math facts. Now, the section toward the middle bottom of the second page, you're going to ask your child about the problems they wrote in their math journal. Now, these questions will prepare them for the math card game of the day. Now, since it's been a while since your child has played the game Corners, they may have forgotten about that game. So if you ask them the question about Corners and they don't seem to remember what it is, you can go ahead and remind them and just tell them those math facts that they've written down are similar to the math facts they used when playing the game Corner. Now, the game for the day is Zero's Corner Game, and we do have a blog for that game. It's called 2017 Summer Game number 17, Zero Corners, and this game is played just like Corners, except you are subtracting the score instead of adding. You're going to start at the score of 200 and then subtract down from there, and the first person to 0 wins the game. Well, that's it for the week. As always, if you have any questions or concerns about a lesson, or if your child is struggling with something, give us a call or email us. We are here to help you. Keep up the great work. Keep plugging away. I look forward to seeing you next week when we go over lessons 53 through 56. Have a great week, everybody.